good, the bad, and the odd. Just when you think you're out, they pull you back in.
Welcome to this episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Odd with your hosts, Mark and Sam. Hi, Sam.
Hey.
Okay, I should call this The Good, the Bad, and the Hammer, really, because I kind of post. So we'll continue our journey through Hammer. This is I think this is going to be the last black and white one we're going to be doing for a while. Though we may touch on some of the Hammer thrillers. Maybe there's at least one really good one with Oliver Reed that I think might be a good one to just slot in, but only as a taste of Hammer sort of thrillers, because we're going to be sticking to the horror really. But this is this is the last black and white one of the horror kind. We'll be hitting actually. So Quatermass 2. Now, before we get into that, I did ask if there was any feedback about Quatermass or anything else on the Facebook group, and I got a fair chunk, but none of it particularly concerns Quatermass 2. So what I thought I'd do is I'd read some of that out before we get into Quatermass. There's some questions and stuff like that. So here we go. The first one was for Bruce Hannon. He said, I was wondering if you would ever consider covering the Final Destination movies. Would love to hear your thoughts on them. Now, I've seen the first one, really enjoyed it, and I've heard the rest are pretty good.
I think you may have talked about it when we had Comfy Chair as part of the main podcast.
Yeah, so would you be interested in that series?
Yeah, maybe.
I think there's 5. The thing is, we're right in the middle. We've only really started the Hammer ones, and we're still in the middle of James Bond, so we're not going to start any new series for a while. But maybe once we finish James Bond, we might consider another horror series, because we've done quite a few horror series, haven't we? And they've been good fun. So maybe, yes, maybe I certainly wouldn't mind getting into the Final Destination movies. I've heard only good things about them. So I heard the first one was like one of the weaker ones, and I really liked the first one. So that's a good sign, right? But there's so many. The thing is, there is so many horror series I'd kind of like to immerse myself in, like Howling and Tremors and things like that. Is there any particular series you fancy?
I want to do Tremors. I do kind of want to do the like an update. We sort of update ourselves on the Alien and Predator films.
That wouldn't be a bad idea actually, because we've had some stinkers and.
Yeah,
and there is a new Predator film out soon, isn't there? The Predator.
Yeah, The Predator,
which I'm kind of looking forward to.
I think that's by Shane Black.
Shane Black did it, but I do like Shane Black's writing style, so it could be fantastic. But you never know, because the Iron Man 3 wasn't terrific. And he was kind of responsible for that. Anyway, there's loads more to this message from Bruce. Let's try some more of this. Other ones, and I'm sorry if you've covered them before, are Nightbreed. No, we haven't covered Nightbreed at all. That's Clive Barker.
I haven't heard of that one.
It's Clive Barker. It's based on Clive Barker.
It's almost definitely messed up.
Yeah, it's quite messed up. It's kind of an interesting one. It's one of these ones that considered the monsters. Yeah, it's almost like I Am Legend. The monsters are the normals and the humans are the monsters.
Ooh, that was weird.
Yeah, there's some very strange beings, should we put it over. It feels a bit Lovecraftian in places, but a different way. Clive Barker's got his own sort of twist on things, right? Another one he's asked about is The Crow.
I'm kind of interested in seeing that, but I didn't know it was a franchise. I thought it was only like one film.
I think there's either 3 or 4, and I've heard the later ones are pretty bad. But I certainly wouldn't mind seeing.
That'd be kind of funny to watch. So
yeah. It's Scream. He suggested Scream. What about the Scream? What is there? 5 of them now? I can't remember now.
I know nothing about that show.
Yeah.
Aside from The Mask. So.
I've seen the first one and I greatly enjoyed it, and I've heard mixed views on the second one, on the subsequent ones. Some people like them, some don't, and stuff like that. But I have to say I do like the first one, and Matthew Lillard's in them, and I really like Matthew Lillard in stuff. I've seen him recently in the Twin Peaks: The Return. Right?
Yeah,
it's Bill Hastings, right? I mean, you've watched Twin Peaks.
Yeah, I just finished it.
Yeah, so it was Bill Hastings in that. Did you like his performance in Twin Peaks?
Yeah, he
cried a lot, didn't he? But he was really good. I really liked it. But he's in Scream, and obviously Shaggy is probably one of the more famous roles he's done, right? but he's pretty
Yeah.
good. And he also got. I'm kind of interrupting Bruce's stuff here. It says Scream or any other 90s horror type movies.
We have done a few like big 90s series, like we did Nightmare on Elm Street, and we did
that was
Friday
more
the 13th.
80s, but mind you, it finished.
But we did all of Nightmare on Elm Street, so
did
that's
do that.
mostly the 90s. So.
What he's suggested is what you such as what you did last summer. I know what you did last summer. Cherry Falls, Urban Legend. I've seen a few of these, but you know what? It's almost like 90s horror movie, because 90s horror was really down in the dumps compared to like earlier decades and later decades. It's kind of horror really picked up in the noughties. It'd be kind of interesting to pick your way through the 90s horror. I mean, there are some great 90s horror. I really like The Prophecy, for example. With Christopher Walken as the Angel Gabriel. But some of these sound like they could be interesting. We can kind of pick the bones out of 90s horror and see what we can find.
Yeah.
The two I really like from 90s horror personally are The Prophecy, which I've already mentioned, and there's a really weird one called The People Under the Stairs that I really like too.
Okay.
Which has got a lot of characters from Twin Peaks in. Sorry, a lot of actors from Twin Peaks in. They're very odd. But I kind of like that one. Anyway, he's written a fair bit more, so I'll just...
Yeah.
I know you cover most of the movies you like, so if it's not you and Sam ideas of fun, that is cool. Well, it might be. And since I'm here, have you both seen the new teaser for the Fallout 76 game?
Yes, I have.
What's your thoughts on it?
I thought it was pretty good, but from what I hear of the game, it's not going to be as good. So, if that makes sense.
Right.
Because
Bruce asked, are you looking forward to it? So it sounds like you're not.
Yeah, it's one of the games that, as much as I'm like, that sounds a bit off, I'm probably going to end up getting it. So.
Yeah. I have to say, I'm not a Fallout fan. I kind of tried, but I find it a bit dull.
It's like you and Far Cry. I know you're eventually going to get every Far Cry game. But
Well, I got 5.
Yeah, you've had them all. So.
And I got the DLC, but I don't like one. I'm not going to go back to 1 or 2. I can't believe it. I doubt it.
Yeah.
Anyway, Fallout 76. Like I say, I'm not a Far Cry. I find Far Cry a bit boring. In fact, you know what? I prefer playing that
Do you mean Fallout?
What did I say? I do mean Fallout. I do mean Fallout. I like my favourite game of Fallout is that Fallout Shelter game. That you get on iPads and phones where you got to control a little personal shelter. I like that better than the main Fallout games, frankly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For him personally,
from what I've been described, it's going to be like a crafting survival game. So like Ark or Rust or that sort of thing, which isn't very Fallout-y. So
okay.
I'll hold judgment, but it sounds like I'm happy to wait a while on this one. So
yeah, and then he also says, for me personally, Red Dead Redemption 2 and Final Fantasy 7 remake, if it ever comes out, are the two games I am looking forward to the most. And Fallout 76 comes after that. Yeah, I am personally. I'm looking forward to the Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah. Okay, E3 is next week at the time of us filming this, so we can talk about that next week. Like gaming stuff, if that's
okay, maybe we can do a premature comfy chair.
Yeah,
we'll talk about after the show.
Talk about the gaming stuff. So
okay, we could do a gaming special. I'm not big on games. I like what I like, but I have been playing a few new games, so I could talk about those. Yeah, sure.
The thing I'm hyped about is From Software, the people who made the Dark Souls series and Bloodborne. They put out a teaser about a year ago. Where it showed like a bone with like twine or blood-covered twine like wrapped around it.
Yeah.
And then it just started like juddering, and then it said "Shadows Die Twice," and that's it. So everyone's sort of like, "What's going on here? What are you doing?"
What's that then? Is that Dark Souls?
We don't know. That's it. That's all they put out. All we know is it's been nicknamed "Shadows Die Twice," but that's it. So that's all the information. There's some quote-unquote leaks, but that's it.
Yeah. Anyway, Bruce continues. He's got a little more left. Great show, guys. I revisited the Judge Dredd episode again. Looks like a Dredd sequel will never happen 6 years on. I can't believe it's been 6 years.
But we're getting that TV series.
We are getting the TV series.
Yeah.
And, we rate Dredd very. We did it at the time of the review, we said
did a
this is one
release
of the
and
great
we've done
films.
it like every time.
Yes,
we talked about it.
Yeah, we love Dredd. Dredd's in our number one film in our Hall of Fame.
I'm surprised we haven't
films.
done like a narration on it.
Maybe
like
we should. We
commentary.
don't often do commentaries, but I mean, I know so much about Judge Dredd, the character.
well, we both
And you know a reasonable amount too, don't you?
Yeah.
We could certainly have a to and fro. We could talk about what our favourite stories are,
It was one of my comic book of choice. So.
Yeah. Dredd's my favourite. Was my favourite? You know, I've got loads of the old Dredd stuff.
Yeah, good lord.
I mean, I read of all the Batman's number 2 in my canon because Dredd's number 1. That's how much I like Dredd.
If only whenever they cross over, Judge Dredd generally is able to get the upper hand through like force of will. Like,
which
Batman
is saying a lot with Batman, right? Force of will. I'm really surprised how bad it did at the cinema, despite good reviews. Yeah, we were blowing the trumpet about it, and it was kind of shocking. I think it was just, it seemed like it was mismarketed in America. I mean, Dredd did well in the UK. It was like the highest. Wasn't it like the first 18 certificate number 1 in the box office for like 15 years when it came out. So that gives you an idea of how well it did really well in the UK anyway. So it's not our fault, right? It's not our fault.
I mean, the guy who made Dredd, like the comic, John Wagner, he loved it. So
yeah, it was great. It was great. Carl Urban was really good as Dredd. Anyway, there was a follow-up to... Again, this was a request for feedback, but there was a follow-up, which was more a reply to Bruce, actually, which was from Philip Green. Nightbreed is my favourite Clive Barker book, and the film is a great film, and The Crow is one of the best comic book movies ever, in my own opinion.
Ooh.
With a cracking soundtrack, and the late Brandon Lee was perfect in the role of Eric Draven. I kind of like The Crow, but I haven't seen it in about 15 years, so I'm kind of... not sure how I feel about it anymore because it's been so long.
I'm always kind of skeevy about watching films where people have died on set. So, like,
I know what you mean.
I want to see Deadpool 2, but I'm not that. I'm just not that encouraged by the fact that a stunt woman died on.
Oh, I didn't know that. I wasn't aware of that. You've written it for me.
What?
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I went to see Deadpool 2 and was very happy to watch it, but didn't know about it.
Yeah, there's like this, what's the
Twilight Zone, the movies.
Yeah,
the famous
that's it. That's the one.
And The Crow. Those two are the famous people to die on set. Then Bruce comes back to reply to Philip, which is The Crow is my favourite movie, so I have to agree with you there. Bruce also posted a link to his own Nightbreed Facebook page, which has got a massive ID. So you're going to have to go look in our group and find these replies to sort of find that. But nice one. So there's some cool pictures on it, Bruce. I had a quick look. So that's the feedback we got. So I'll tell you what. Let's get on with it.
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
Get on with it.
Okay, Quatermass 2. This came out, obviously a sequel to Quatermass Experiment, made 2 years later. It's an interesting, these Quatermass stuff, interesting how it leapfrogs, because like the very first Quatermass Experiment was a TV serial from 1953. 1953. And then it was made into a film in 1955. And also in 1955, Quatermass 2 came out on the TV. And then it was made into a film 2 years later. So it we get this leapfrogging thing. Now, Hammer were keen to get a sequel out on this one, but they tried to do their own version of Quatermass, which got transformed into X the Unknown, which we've already discussed, haven't we? Now, old Nigel Neal wouldn't give us permission for the Quatermass character to be using that, and he's always been very kind of ornery whenever anyone comes to try and adopt his stuff. He adopts loads of other people's stuff over the years.
How convenient.
But he hates it, anyone out touching his stuff. And it kind of makes sense because he really had to give up the rights on the experiment. He had very little to do with the movie other than providing the basic script, and he had no input once he'd written the BBC version, and he wanted input, and he kind of had to negotiate to get input. So he actually has got his fingerprints on this second film, sort of adding his own touches. Now, he also famously hated Brian Dunlevy. He wanted Quatermass to be a much more thoughtful and sort of avuncular character, whereas Brian Donlevy was a much harder-nosed one in the first film, wasn't he? Anyway, so this has got a touch of Nigel Neal directly involved this time. What was your general feeling about this film?
I thought it was pretty good. It started off like the Quatermass kind of like evolved as a character throughout the film.
He did.
Like, he started off as pretty much the same as he was. Like, I know better than you, and you should get out of my way. But like by the point where his assistant got like kidnapped, he kind of like started to realise that stuff's starting to be his fault.
Yeah,
so,
and he's softening, isn't he? And I think he's been a bit kicked around by the world, you know. Firstly, all the stuff we do, he was really not deterred at the end of the Quatermass experiment by what had happened. He said, we're going to get another rocket out there. Yeah. But in this, it's like, oh, they're going to deny us money. What am I going to do? You know, it's kind of, he's got a bit of worries about it. Interestingly, this film starts with a pre-credit sequence, which is quite unusual in cinema at this time. It actually started with a couple driving down the road frantically, and Quatermass nearly getting into an accident with them, but then him helping them. But it all ties up to the weird meteorites landing. Like roughly 90 miles away. They keep using this phrase, 90 miles away from his main base, because they always drive. They seem to be doing a lot of driving back and forth between his own base and where this place is. Interesting plotting here. Basically, the entire plot is we find aliens that have kind of permeated government, are kind of taking over.
Yeah, that was kind of a cool reveal when all the soldiers had like the mark on their face.
Yeah. And also when the police captain went to his boss, and he was just about to reveal about this massive conspiracy, and he noticed he had the V mark on his hand, and he said he just turned it into a discussion about a case, didn't he? That was kind of cool. Very sinister. I often feel Quatermass kind of got... One of the reasons Quatermass isn't around much anymore is all of his ideas, all the ideas he stuffed into the first film, the second film, and the third one, which we haven't talked about, Quatermass, kind of became part of the zeitgeist, and you saw them in later series like The X-Files and Doctor Who, right? So people were used to like the idea of aliens being in a conspiracy with government, aren't they? As a general concept. Do you reckon?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, an invasion of the body snatchers and such. And a lot of that kind of started here in this film. This came out... it didn't come out, but the original story on BBC television came out in 1955, so it was a year before the invasion of the body snatchers, which is another major film that has that kind of idea. The pod people. Whereas Quatermass was there first with that kind of thing. I have to qualify that. There was another film called Invaders from Mars, which was a kind of more juvenile take on the whole thing from America. But that had the idea of invaders somehow taking over people and then using this to sort of infiltrate society. So it wasn't quite the first, but Quatermass was pretty early. So as you said, Don Levy's character kind of softened, didn't he?
Yeah.
Do you like him more that way, or do you prefer him more like...
it was better to see him have like a human side as opposed to just being like super confrontational about everything. And it was a nice touch from like ruthlessly going after the rocket experiments to like his entire goal throughout the film is to find out what happened to his assistant. Yeah. Not through like scientific methods. It's because he feels guilty because he basically egged the assistant on to drive into like this blocked off area.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting that he sees something that looks just like his own moon-based project.
Yeah.
And that kind of...
Surprised that didn't really come up that much after that.
No, I mean, he dismisses it in a couple of lines later in the script, doesn't he? Just says, well, they're not necessarily ripping it off. They're like anywhere where you're going to seed beings who aren't used to that environment, you're going to have protective domes and stuff like this. It kind of turns into a, hold on a minute, why would someone do that on Earth unless they're not from it? It was kind of that kind of thing, right? Yeah, so do you prefer this version of this iteration of Quatermass?
Yeah, I prefer how it varies between like Stone Cold Scientist and actually having feelings. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. I find I kind of with you in that it broadens the character's range, but I kind of like the original take because he's such a sociopath and he's kind of really driven in a kind of that he just doesn't care kind of way. Whereas this one, he's more like a normal person. Do you know what I mean? And I think that has to do with Nigel Neal's input personally. It gives because the emotional range is wider in this one. It gives a slightly better performance, perhaps.
Yeah. It's probably more challenging than an actor. Probably not helped by the fact that he was apparently drunk as a skunk the entire time.
Yeah, he was a drinker, but apparently he's quite professional. At this point, I just want to mention I've actually written a book about Quatermass in television and it's called Quatermass in Television and Movies. It's on Kindle, so I've written all about my thoughts on all the TV series. If anyone's interested in that, it's pretty cheap and it's fantastic. Just a little plug there. I'll put it in the show notes too. He's what do you think of the acting or generally in this?
It was pretty good, aside from a few like particularly strange moments.
Like
but that's more like it came across more as like it's intentional, but sometimes it was just like bad.
Do you mean like they
was when the people under control?
Yes,
they acted a bit weird, but sometimes it was a bit too weird. Like it was really obvious that something was wrong.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Of course, this is very early days for this kind of portrayal. So, because it's like one of the first ones to do that kind of thing, it's going to be fairly broad. And it's only as, the language of cinema or TV or whatever develops, do you get more subtlety and the audience can still understand what's going on. Whereas if you do subtle right at the beginning, it kind of can be a bit, what's going on here kind of thing. So I kind of get why. The only the 1 week performance I thought was the girl in the bar. Perhaps she really wasn't an actress, but everyone else I thought was pretty good. There was definitely some good stuff. Now we got to replay. Inspector Lomax was played by a different actor in this one. I thought it was interesting that Inspector Lomax in this one was kind of a bit harder nosed than in the first one.
Yeah.
Because in the first one, he was saying things like, I'm a simple churchman. I don't understand this, that, now. Whereas this one, Lomax was kind of a bit harder edged. It's almost like he took some of the characteristics of Quatermass in the first one. And, and they kind of swap parts of their personality somewhat.
I do love that his immediate reaction to Quatermass was just, oh god, no.
It was another character, the interesting actor turning up. It was Sid James, who's famous.
Yeah, that was weird.
Doing a straight role, pretty good.
Yeah.
He was a reporter, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a reporter, and if I remember correctly, he got offed about 20 minutes after he showed up. So.
Yeah, he got machine gun. Now, this was quite a brutal film, wasn't it? The
guards were shooting everyone. There was a bit where the people under control were talking to Quatermass and his troop, and then they realised that they screamed and the microphones that they were talking to through cut off. Yeah. And then Quatermass realised that the aliens had wedged them into pipes to stop oxygen flow. Yeah, it's Jesus Christ.
Because they got a hold of the control room and were pumping oxygen into the main tanks to try and destroy the alien entities, whatever they were. And it's interesting they had this whole premise of these little meteorites that were shaped so that they'd fall much more gradually and not burn up. And they contain some sort of thing that could explode and to go in your face or be harvested and taken to the central place. And Quatermass even mentioned they can reconnect with each other to make a bigger entity and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was really weird.
It's kind of cool when they had giant sort of proto-Godzilla monsters walking around.
What do you think of the special effects with those?
It was a bed sheet over someone with some plastic balls stuck to it, but that was about. It was no worse than some of the giant monsters at the time.
Yeah,
but
to me, this was a very bleak film. in many ways. It was real. It was realist sci-fi, wasn't it? Really. It wasn't like a fun, let's do stuff. It was kind of
at
dark.
the end, they're not even sure that they beat him. They're just like,
no.
Let's just hope that we've finished him off.
Yeah, and it's quite an abrupt ending.
Off.
I mean, we're going to let's get to the ending while we're talking about it. Yeah, it's quite an abrupt ending. It's bazookaing because they just annoy the humans so much, by blocking. They doing these disgusting things like stuffing people into pipes to block airflow. That one guy just gets super mad and bazookas the main tank. I should mention that I think the guy that did that and he was in the bar earlier is Michael Ripper, who we actually saw in X the Unknown as one of the sergeants, I think. And we're going to see him a lot of him in Hammer because he was like one of the. He's always turning up as like the barkeep or something in Hammer films, and again he makes an appearance in this. So he was with Hammer the early days. I'm going to keep pointing out whenever Michael Ripper's in a film, and just so you know. Interesting. Did you notice they used the word zombies?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, they referred to the guards. They said they were going on about how the guards are stuck up and don't really talk to them. I said they're like zombies. So there's quite a weird use of the word zombies in this 50s film, way before Night of the Living Dead and stuff like that. But they use it in a different way. Obviously, it's people that won't talk to them, and the guard uniforms were a bit kind of weird and scary and almost Russian. Stuff, right? Weirdly, they reminded me a lot. There's another film you may not have seen. George Romero did, which wasn't a zombie film, but was kind of had the same, had a sort of nihilist, destructive sort of element of society in it called The Crazies. And in fact, a lot of the military people in that, they're wearing this formless military garb with their faces covered, and they're kind of murderous. They're just following orders. And the guards in this reminded me of that, and I wondered if George Romero had seen this and was kind of ripping it off. So, this was also ripped off in a couple of Doctor Who stories. There was one in particular where the Autons made their first appearance with John I think it might have been John Pertwee's very first adventure called Spearhead from Space, and that was about meteorites coming down and exploding in people's faces.
Yeah, they've done that kind of a few times.
Yeah,
I remember the one with the giant flies had something similar.
Green Death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they mentioned that the British Rocket Agency in one of the or British Rocket, whatever it's called.
British Rocket Group.
Yeah. They mentioned them in
Sylvester McCoy's episodes. And they even say, I wish Bernard could help us with this.
Yeah.
Apparently they've tried a few times to get Nigel Neal to allow the character of Quatermass to appear in Doctor Who, but he always refused it. Because he considered Doctor Who was an inferior rip-off of Quatermass. He was that kind of guy, right?
Okay, sure.
Now, Quatermass 2 was actually a big box office success, but it wasn't the biggest. The biggest success of that year was Curse of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Which really set the mould for Hammer. Basically, Hammer went full in on Gothic horror at that point.
Yeah.
You imagine if Curse of Frankenstein hadn't done so well, Quatermass 2 would have been the biggest success of the year. They may well have stuck with sci-fi. I think for Hammer, it probably was a good thing. They kind of hit it perfectly with like Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee and stuff. So it kind of worked out well for them. But it's kind of interesting to think about, well, what happens if they would have carried on with the sci-fi? They did do some sci-fi stuff afterwards. But it was really Gothic horror that they were about. And Nigel Neal did work with Hammer a few times. For example, he wrote a screenplay for a film called The Witches, which we'll get to eventually. Was there any flaws with it?
The monster costumes.
Yeah, the monster costumes.
There were some bits where Quatermass just came off a bit too much of an arse.
Oh, well, but that's Quatermass, right?
Yeah, that's Quatermass, but even he's not that obtuse. So
Really? I can, what, like when?
like right at the start when he walks in and he's like, why's the satellite dish angled so low? And they're like, well, there's these things coming in from space. He's like, angle it back up.
Yeah,
Not like hearing what they're saying. He's just like, just angle it back up. Come on.
Yeah, but then he does almost immediately apologise.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I've just had this terrible, terrible day. And stuff like that. Yeah, and I agree with you. The monster was not good. There were some good standout scenes, though. I really like. We haven't talked about the visit to the base where Quatermass is getting more and more suspicious. Yeah, he's getting more and more suspicious, isn't he? About just come in this room with us, and it's like
it'll all be okay.
Yeah,
people don't have questions after this.
And then he goes with an MP, doesn't he? They visit with an MP, and the MP's kind of suspicious about all this government money being spent, and they call it synthetic food factory, don't they, and stuff like that. So it's all supposed to be about creating food, but the MP also gets away. But then Quatermass is running around this base, and then we see the MP come down screaming. It's almost like was it a Heinrich
covered
scream?
in like black goo. I'd have said it was like a Fay Ray scream.
Yeah,
not like any like feeling behind it, just absolute like just maximum volume scream.
And he's covered in this black goo, stumbling down this steel staircase, so he could have slipped at any point. And he's covered in this black steaming slime or tar or something. And he says that his words to Quatermass are, "Don't touch me. This is the food, and it burns." So he's kind of making the point that this ain't no food that humans could eat, you know? It's obviously the environment or something of the thing. Also, doesn't Quatermass get a look at the monsters? No, does he see the monsters at this point? He does, doesn't he?
Yeah, he sees them through like a porthole, and then
they're bubbling away.
Yeah, but they're like microscopic, so
yeah,
it just looks like goo. So
there was 3 really big standout scenes for this, and actually there was some quite shocking stuff all the way through. But the bit we just talked about, the bit where Jimmy, the reporter, just gets machine gun for being on the phone.
That was rough.
Shooting with Tommy guns at nearly point blank range, which must have shot the audience, right? And then also, I really like the bit where Lomax notices the mark on his boss's hands, and suddenly the paranoia quotient kind of goes right through the roof at that point. You know, because Lomax knows that Quatermass wasn't talking nonsense. It's pretty bleak, the whole film, really.
Yeah.
Must have been quite a shocker back in the 50s, because I mean they used to more some of the American sci-fi is kind of dark too, like as I say, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but there was also a lot of fun, colourful stuff, you know. So this was very British sci-fi, I'd say. Right, any other things you want to discuss?
Not that.
Nothing about. What do you think of the direction? And the music.
The music was kind of cool there, but it was like the same 3 tracks.
Yeah, it's James Bernard again, who did a lot of Hammer stuff. But it had a nice sense of tension building and use.
Yeah.
Val Guest directed this one, he also directed Quatermass Experiment, so that kept it tonally quite. Do you think they were tonally similar?
Yeah, pretty similar. So
yeah, they make a good pair, don't they?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's not that much more to talk about. It's really it's a good like old film, but
yeah.
Do you
like the black and white?
Yeah, it was kind of cool. It kind of added to it. Like there was, especially when the guy got stuffed in a pipe.
Yeah, that was great.
It was like stuff started coming out, and the guy had some on his hand, and his sort of like slow turning reaction, because you couldn't tell whether it was the alien goo or whatever. It was just like, oh no, he's infected, is what I thought.
Oh, okay. You thought it was going to affect him, but in fact, it turned out to be blood, right? And then we get fairly abrupt ending. They bazooka.
Yeah. Well, not even that.
A blast,
they send the rocket. They send the rocket that Quatermass has been working on to blow up the aliens, like the meteor that they've travelled in on.
Now, in the TV series, there's a whole couple of more episodes after that point where Quatermass and another guy have to kind of pilot the ship almost to the point of it impacting, and then they escape. And I can't remember the details now. I have seen it, but I can't remember the details. And this is a much tighter and, in my opinion, better version of that story. They basically use, as you say, the rocket as a bomb, don't they, to blow them up. But also, it's interesting when they blow up the dome. There's almost like a nuclear blast of air, isn't there? Rushing air, and then the weird creature kind of starts flopping around, and you think it's going to attack them, but it just dies of oxygen. The oxygen just kills it in the end, doesn't it? It just flops down. Which is kind of almost like a bit like War of the Worlds, the bugs killing the Martians in War of the Worlds. It's like the planet killed it rather than anything else kind of feel. Pretty tight, punchy film as well, quite short, wasn't it? Yeah, like an hour and 15 minutes, wasn't it? Yeah, very short. So, okay, so what would you give this out of 10?
I'd give this about a 7.
A 7? I think I rate it much more highly than you, but it's a pretty solid. I personally would give it a 9. I really like this. I do like this film. I've seen it many times, and I will be returning to it. I do like the Quatermass series anyway, so there is that. But I thought this was really good. So next time we cover Hammer, we'll be going back to colour, probably mostly staying there, and that'll be Horror of Dracula, which we have covered before, but I think it's worth a revisit, right? Again, it's a kind of punchy film, and we get to see Christopher Lee deliver his first lines for Hammer as well. So that'd be cool, right? And my favourite, and we also get to see my favourite vampire hunter, Peter Cushing's Van Helsing. So I'm looking forward to talking about that again. All right then. So bye from me.
Bye.